Now let's get into some information about Quinton Tellis. Quinton Tellis can be described as very quiet and very shy and soft-spoken person. He was the youngest of three, and he only lived less than a mile from Jessica's parents. Now, even though Quinton was soft-spoken and shy, he did have a temper and an aggression inside of him, allegedly. And I think this temper due to just frustration. He dropped out of school in the 8th grade. He had very difficulty with reading, so he wasn't very literate. So I think if you only have an 8th grade education, I think it's only natural for you to be frustrated, for you to have this temper inside of you, because you are not that knowledgeable and you don't have the reading skills to know exactly what's going on. With him dropping out of school at only 8th grade, he was constantly in and out of trouble. He was actually a member of the Gangster Disciples. Now, Tellis was actually convicted of burglary and fleeing of a law enforcement officer in 2010. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, was released on probation the same year. He was arrested for violating the probation in 2010 and then for residential burglary in 2011. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison at that time. Tellis was released on probation in 2014. Tellis was also charged with domestic violence. However, it did not ever go to court. But obviously, he was in and out of prison based on these petty theft crimes, but never on something so serious. However, he did have that one conviction of domestic violence. Now, on the tape at the gas station, it shows that Tellis actually met Jessica Chambers at the gas station, and the relationship was only for 2 weeks in which they hooked up. Mind you, Tellis had a girlfriend in another county, so he was having an affair ultimately with Jessica, who is quite younger than him. And mind you, he was married, or he got married in 2015. So based on the different sources that I've been looking into, he was married, but he also had a girlfriend in another county, plus hanging out and messing with Jessica Chambers within 2 weeks of meeting her. That's a no. Now, in another county, a woman named Mandy was found murdered. And when she was discovered murdered, Quinton was actually on camera using her debit card. Now, there was never any DNA found to him actually ending her life. However, he was convicted of debit card fraud. Now, when asked about Jessica Chambers and her passing away, he stated that he automatically deleted her out of his phone because he didn't want a dead girl on his phone. However, if someone that you had just gotten to know within the last 2 weeks had passed away, you had relations with them, wouldn't you want to somewhat keep their memory alive and not just automatically delete messages between you two, unless you had something to hide? There was 111 calls between Jessica and Quinton and 75 text messages within the 2 weeks of him knowing Jessica. And that's quite a lot for only knowing somebody for 2 weeks. You had to have been consistently talking to them and getting to know them. Now, these calls and text messages, they were listed under the name of Quinton and Derrick in Jessica's phone. And there are 2 Derricks listed under her phone as well. So we have to speculate. Was this a nickname that Quinton never had to her, like this was a special nickname she gave to him? Or was this a completely different person and we are talking about Quinton Tellis for no reason? Because the actual person out there is actually named Derrick in her phone. Now, the prosecution, they are convinced that Quinton Tellis actually committed this crime. They speculate that he actually suffocated her and set her aflame in the car. However, there's no DNA. Everything was set on fire. Now, Jessica's friend, Lakeisha Myers, was actually with Jessica and Quinton the day she passed away. She stated that Jessica picked her up around 10 a.m. and Quinton was already in the car, so they had already been hanging out. She also stated that Jessica took Quinton home first. Now, her friend Lakeisha is kind of a sketchy witness because she does admit that she sells drugs on a regular basis and that her story changed multiple times. And in fact, on Facebook, it was found in 2014 that she actually got into a physical fight with Jessica. So was she a truly loyal, trustworthy friend, or did she, in fact, have something to do with the crime as well? The first person to arrive at the crime scene was actually a firefighter. His name was Cole. And when you see the court case online, you can see he talks very slow, but also he is very traumatized by the incident still to this day. And throughout the entire court case you'll see online, you'll notice that a lot of people have actually confessed that they've had to quit their job and take time off after seeing the horrendous crime scene that Jessica went through. So Cole states when he saw her, he didn't believe she was actually alive, actually a real person. He said it was like seeing a zombie walk in the middle of the street, only her undergarments were on her and sticking to her skin. Her entire mouth was black, full of soot. And when she first started talking, she stated her name was Jessica Chambers. Jessica Chambers. But if you can imagine, anybody who's had burn marks messes up their slur and their speech to pronounce things correctly. Like they would never be able to talk as clearly as what I'm doing right now. Things will be a little bit centered and a little off. So not only did she say her name was Jessica Chambers, she also said Eric or Derrick. Now this is just me, what I'm thinking. But she's saying Derrick, but maybe she couldn't pronounce Tellis, Eric, Tellis. Oh no, it doesn't sound the same. Now there were multiple responders that headed to the crime scene of Jessica Chambers, and majority of them said that the site was so horrendous that they needed psychiatric evaluations after seeing such a crime scene that traumatic. Now, with the firefighters being out there and the responders, they also said that they saw a suspicious black male who was middle-aged walking in the woods. Some people stated that he had a blue t-shirt on, and then some people stated he had a white t-shirt on. However, no police officer, no responder, no firefighter ever got the name of this person. I'm often questioning who was the suspicious man walking in the woods at this time of night, looking at this crime scene. Now, there were 15 to 16 responders. They stated that Jessica said Eric or Derrick did this to me. Now, the autopsy shows that she had no ventilation in her lungs. So with the burn and the smoke, that what caused her to end her life. She had no physical domestic abuse marks. However, she did have drugs within her system. No rape kit was ever given to Jessica. Skin was described as leather due to the burn marks. Now, one thing about the prosecution when handling this case, they did a very poor job. They did not even go through the crime scene until a week later. Now, this has been the most goriest crime scene that this county has ever witnessed in Panola, Mississippi. Wouldn't they get right on the case immediately instead of a week later? So they moved her car immediately instead of inspecting it first right there on site. There were foot impressions all over the crime scene due to so many responders trying to save Jessica's life that night as well. So with those foot impressions walking all through the crime scene, they could not detect which shoe print was connected to the actual person who committed the crime. Lastly, the crime scene had been tampered with because they had to wash down the scene in order to get rid and take out the fire that was occurring there in the woods. Also, I want to keep in mind that this was a little town, so they had very little resources to get the really good skills of closing the case and getting a solid suspect in this murder scene. They had no dogs to search for the accelerant to figure out how did this fire start within the car. Was it a glitch in the car, or did somebody purposely set it on fire? They don't know because they never had anyone search the actual car or a dog to actually, a crime scene dog, to actually search the actual crime scene. Now, this other guy named Jerry King, who's actually been in and out of crime in jail, he actually found the keys. He actually found the keys 2 days after the crime scene. Now, he did not know it was Jessica's keys. He actually gave the keys to his daughter to play with. And then when he realized one of the keychains said Chambers, he turned it into the police. Now, I'm wondering why he was never questioned as a suspect. So somebody who lets their child just play with keys, that's not an actual toy. So why would you allow your child to be playing with keys? Now, one thing about Quinton that made him the #1 suspect, he constantly lied to try to get out of trouble. Instead of him confessing, he began backtracking and stating things that could actually be proven to be true. Now, Quinton's cell phone pinged off the same place that where Jessica was at. However, when he was questioned by the police, he stated that he was never with her, that it could be proven that you were. I'm gonna go through the timeline of her text messages so we can really get a glimpse of their actual relationship, what it was like, and if he actually did it. And I think this will be a good stopping point. So if you want me to continue and see if he's gonna be found guilty or not, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Until next time.